You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good evening, everyone. I am Steven Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. This is our recruiting roundtable show. We're going to be joining Josh Guest in just a second, talking about Ole Miss's 26-14 win over the Oklahoma Sooners. We're going to talk about the Arkansas Razorbacks and what that game could potentially mean over the weekend. And we'll talk about Jaxson Dart, who in that Arkansas game probably will become the all-time total offense leader in Ole Miss history, passing Bo Wallace, and he's probably a game or two away or three away. I think he has to throw for 270 yards a game to pass Eli Manning in passing yards, but we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Let's go ahead and break it out wide to Josh Guest. Josh, how you doing, buddy? You're muted.
Sorry, thank you.
Yeah.
Doing good, Steven. Glad we got a win, and full disclosure, when we lost to LSU, I got mad at Ole Miss football, and I turned everything about Ole Miss football off, including your show, until we won yesterday. So no offense or anything. It's just I was just mad about it. So
about 60% of Ole Miss fans that I can tell did that exact same thing.
Yeah. So there, I'm a man of the people then.
Yeah. It is what it is. Absolutely nuts. If you look at just the numbers of the post-game show, even after the Oklahoma game, I'm sitting at like 5,300 views for the game. Last week, 15,000. Yeah. So, it affected people, that LSU game, pretty considerably. But Ole Miss, tomorrow's podcast is basically about if Ole Miss can beat Arkansas, they're kind of where they need to be. It's okay. The season's kind of been resuscitated.
Yeah, and I mean, the Kentucky one was the really tough one, and
that was unforgivable.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, the fumble into the end zone that was recovered right outside or whatever, that's the only rushing touchdown we've given up all year. Is that right?
Yes, that's the only one rushing touchdown, was that fluke touchdown that Kentucky scored at the end of the game.
Yeah, as you said, non-repeatable, that's not something that would normally happen. The LSU game, we just let stuff get away from us. I think the coaches, Kiffin, if he would just kick the field goals early, don't go for 4th and 2 from the 5 or from the 6 or whatever. Let's take the points. I know they're not guaranteed, but I mean, it's a chip shot field goal. We did it in both games, LSU and in Oklahoma, right? We did it in this game too, early on.
You know, I like to think about this in this season, and I'm not saying that Lane Kiffin and Matt Luke would be better than Lane Kiffin. I'm not saying that at all. But if Lane Kiffin would just coach the game like Matt Luke did in 2018 and 2019, to where he would always kick the field goal, he would never go for it on 4th down, a strictly conservative coach, Ole Miss would be 7-0 right now. I am dead serious about that.
I agree. But, you know, the other side of that, though, Stephen, is we fell in love with the whole
yes.
Go for it on 4th down with Lane Kiffin. So that's part of the allure. That's part of what Ole Miss fans have grown to expect and love from him. But now that we have that just absolute, not quite steel curtain, but pretty darn close defense, I think it does change things. So I hope we do transition over to that. I forgot what you call it. That whole Alabama model.
Oh, the joyless murder ball.
That's it. Joyless murder ball. Yes. Because I just think we have the defense to do it. I think against Georgia, we're going to score some points. But, man, yeah. And I'm hoping that we figured something out in the second half on defense, because they ate in the 4th quarter and late in the 3rd quarter. And, I mean, feasted.
It's because we quit helping Oklahoma in the first half. The first touchdown that Oklahoma scored was essentially off of 15-yard penalties that multiple of them happened on the drive to keep it alive. And Oklahoma was able to get in the end zone thanks to a coverage bust. The second one was after, listen, if Lane Kiffin would have just kicked the field goal at that point, you would have gone up 13-7. This game would have ended up 29-7, and all of the fans would have much different opinions of what happened. The Kentucky game was the same way. And because of that history that you've talked about So a little bit of like, this is how Lane Kiffin does it, the outside the box thinking. The Matt Corral Arkansas game from 2021, just where it got completely nuts. That Alabama game, that became the brand essentially of what Ole Miss football is. And this year, I don't want to say anything and give away too much on tomorrow's podcast, but playing like that didn't win big games for Ole Miss. Whenever the games really mattered, those teams were good enough just to kind of outlast Ole Miss and wait for them to self-destruct. So this year, we have the talent to actually win some of those big games, playing the game the way that it's been played for 150 years and doing that stuff that's necessary. All we have to do is do it. But there's going to be a group of people that's like, this offense is way too conservative. This offense is not to where it needs to be. Where's the big plays? Where's the 50-second scoring drives and all of that? Because it's just ingrained now in the DNA of what an Ole Miss fan is. The reality of it is Ole Miss is a better football team when they play like they did the second half of that Oklahoma game than on games when they're slinging around the yard.
Yeah, and Steven, even the shot, I know Jordan Watkins, I thought he got in on the touchdown that they said he didn't get in.
He didn't.
Okay, he didn't. Okay.
Yeah.
And then and I thought actually on the next play on JJ they were going to say he was down. But
JJ might have been down.
Yeah,
but you couldn't tell. You couldn't tell.
Yeah. But there was a shot earlier in the game to Watkins that I thought was a needless shot down the field. They even talked about how Watkins was kind of playing that Trey Harris role, going deep and that kind of thing. I was glad to see us get Juice Wells the ball closer to the line of scrimmage and let him do what Juice does. And the other thing that I thought was super exciting about the game was Prescorn led us in receiving, and Daquan Wright and Caden Lee were tied for second or third, whatever.
12 personnel, hallelujah.
Yes, and but it wasn't necessarily that it was them. That was nice. And that early play over the middle of Prescorn, that was really on that first drive was really, really good. I think it was the first pass maybe. But the fact that the ball was spread out to so many receivers and there were so many 30, 40, 50, 60-yard receivers that that's more like what we've come to expect. And I'll be honest, I've been thinking, just talking to somebody last week about it, and I wonder if this helmet communication hasn't messed some of that up. That Dart's not being able to, or not that he's not being able to, but he's not being asked to go through his progressions as much, which that was said on the broadcast, by the way, that Charlie Weiss told him, go through your progression. So since that was brought up, I'm wondering if that was something that was lacking because of the whole being in his ear going, Harris is open. He's going to be open, or whatever they're saying to him.
Yeah, it's absolutely possible, but it could also just be that Trey Harris is the best wide receiver in all of college football, and everybody knows that. And whenever you have somebody as good as him, you obviously want to get the ball in his hands. So it could be that as well. But, I mean, yours is very plausible. This helmet communication could be a little bit problematic. If you look at Alabama, they're another team that relied heavily on explosive plays. Teams have figured out how to stop those explosive plays. LSU, they figured out how to stop those explosive plays. Texas A&M threw 3 passes in the second half and just absolutely boat raced LSU. And now the thing about it is Ole Miss needs to find a running game, and they need to find one pretty much right now. Absolutely is the case. Rashad Amos has switched his number to number 6. I don't know what that means exactly. Logan Diggs, maybe he'll be available shortly as well. But Ole Miss needs to figure out the running back situation because they at least need to threaten the Georgia Bulldogs and the Arkansas Razorbacks with the run game. The Oklahoma run production that Ole Miss had in that game is not going to be good enough. This is a lot of the same offensive linemen that opened up holes all last year for Ulysses Bentley. A lot of the same players are going through the same thing, but for this year, for some reason, it's not working like it did. And that makes me wonder if you just might need somebody a little bit bigger back there in the backfield.
Yeah, and how many games has Amos made an appearance?
Not many.
Can he still redshirt? I mean, I'm just wondering if that's like at some point you got to think, man, I'm not getting in the game or the games at all. And so, but I mean, the one thing I think, and Parrish has been a good back for us, but he's not as big. He's not as strong as some of the other guys. He's a strong guy, but he doesn't have the explosivity that Bentley has, and we saw it. We saw it on I don't know, who did we play? He had the 54-yard or whatever it was touchdown earlier. What am I? Anyway, he had a big touchdown against somebody earlier this year, and he only had a few carries in that game. But that's the explosiveness that we kind of expected to have, and we haven't really had him in there to get that. So that's been a little frustrating.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast our first listen every day. When we come back, we will talk a little bit about Chris Beard's big win over the Illinois Fighting Illini today on the hardwood. We'll start looking towards Arkansas and talk about the records that Jaxson Dart is just very close to breaking. Stick around. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need in place to bet live bets on the NFL all in one place. Ole Miss is currently 6.5-point favorites over the Arkansas Razorbacks, but we all know how weird this game can be. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can go check out the latest stats, view play-by-play, and so much more on the same play page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. A new partner of the Locked On Ole Miss podcast is College Corner, your one-stop shop for all things Ole Miss. Game day is just around the corner, and this week, fans will be rocking Navy in Arkansas. So head on over to the College Corner and pick up your perfect game day gear. Whether you're gearing up for football, basketball, or baseball, College Corner has got you covered. They're located off of Sisk Avenue, right across from the new Chick-fil-A. Getting to the store is a breeze, and they have plenty of parking. And for those of you out of state, no worries. Visit collegecornerstore.com where they turn around orders lightning fast. Trust me, this just isn't a pitch. College Corner is where I get all of my Rebel gear. So visit collegecornerstore.com or stop by College Corner today. All right, Josh, really good stuff. Let's go ahead and start talking. We'll go back to football in the last segment and the last part of this segment. Let's talk about basketball right now. How much of the basketball game did you see today? How impressed were you? Because I'm going to be honest, I was very impressed. This was a basketball team that honestly looked like this was a mid-December basketball team. This wasn't a team just going through the motions. They look like they are legit and ready to go, and I'm expecting them to come out of the gates in a hurry.
Yeah, Steven, I didn't get to see much of it. It was on in my house, but I was doing some tasks around the house, as is the case often on the weekends. And so I didn't get to catch a lot of it. I did see some of the numbers, though, and I believe Padula had 1 turnover and 8 assists. Mm-hmm. So taking care of the basketball, doing what we thought he would do when he committed or whatever the word, I don't know what the word is, but when he
transferred.
When he
transferred.
Yeah, transferred. So, and then what was it? Dia that led us in points?
Yeah. Malik Dia had 18.
And we had what, four people in double digits?
Something
Davis,
like that. Something
Dia,
like that.
Morrell, and Brakefield, I think, had 15. So,
yeah, Ole Miss shot nearly 50% in the game. They were over 50% in 3-point shots. They took care of the basketball and turned over Illinois. They struggled rebounding the ball, but I think that's just because they do not have that giant rim protector in the middle of the paint. They're going to struggle to rebound from time to time, and they had 18 fouls in the game. But like you said, Malik Dia had 18 points. He had a really nice night shooting, and if he is going to be that essentially stretch 4 or center to where they just put all 5 outside the 3-point line, I think it's going to be interesting because of the matchups that Ole Miss can cause.
Yeah, and it was at least every time I looked at the TV. Now, granted, when I got home and turned it on, it was already, I think it may have been early second half. But it looked comfortable. It didn't ever look stressed whenever I looked at the score. But it's possible that I missed a run by Illinois or something when they got close. But it just looked like sort of Beard and the boys had it in control and in command throughout.
Yeah, Illinois would make a run and cut it from like 24 to like 17, and then all of a sudden Ole Miss would hit back-to-back threes and it'd be back up to 23.
Yeah.
And that's the way the whole second half went.
Yeah.
So I'm really impressed about the way this basketball team looked. Now, listen, they're preseason number 9 in the SEC out of 16. This is a dang good basketball league. And Illinois is a really good team, but at the people at the top of the SEC in basketball, that's kind of a different type of basketball, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, well, the people at the top of the SEC in any sport are just kind of different than.
News at 11, water's wet, sky's blue.
That's right.
Yeah. So, let's transition back to football, but I did want to talk about basketball, even though it was a preseason charity game. Ole Miss did get a big win over Illinois in that game, and it was nationally televised, which was kind of cool. I think we're going to see more and more of those coming in the future. But transferring over, Ole Miss and Jaxson Dart is on the verge of setting several milestones essentially right now. And I'm bringing up my tweet right now so I can get the numbers correct. So bear with me. This is bad podcast. I get that. I'm sorry. But Jaxson Dart is this week, he should become the total offense leader in Ole Miss history. Jaxson Dart has 10,245 yards of total offense. The record is Bo Wallace, who has 10,478. So 233 yards in this game. Jaxson Dart is going to be the top total offense person in the Ole Miss record book. He is about 1,000 yards behind Eli Manning in passing. He needs to average about 270 yards a game to break it by the end of the Egg Bowl. Eli Manning has 10,119 yards passing. Jaxson Dart has 9,033. These are some of the major records. Now, Eli is going to get to keep the touchdown records. Jaxson Dart's not going to hit that number. So that's a record that Eli is going to be able to keep. And there's people that have some vitriol on my timeline for whatever reason about Jaxson Dart breaking these records potentially. That's just weird.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get that. If there's somebody that doesn't want that, especially an Ole Miss fan, I mean, why not? Yeah. The guy came here, and I know he transferred in, but he's been a 3-year starter now. And
just like Eli.
Yep, and he's a heck of a competitor. And look, he helped tremendously in what we have going on right now. And I still don't want to get too much into blaming coaches and play calling and game plans and stuff, but I just feel like we do things a little differently. We win both the games we lost pretty handily. So, and not from players. I mean, yes, players have to make plays, but like kicking a field goal, just kick the field goal. The whole game.
If Ole Miss just kicks field goals when they could kick field goals, Ole Miss wins both games.
Yep.
That's it.
And so I just that's what it is. So, Steven, in my head, I'll tell you too. I don't think anybody thought halfway through the 2022 baseball season that Ole Miss was going to win it all, and not even near the end. I mean, we were just fighting to get in, and so I feel like the football team has their back against the wall. Not to make that comparison, not to say that I expect us to run the table, but if I'm being honest, as that Ole Miss homer fan, if Tom were on here and talking about how he's an Ole Miss homer, I am too. In the back of my mind, I'm hoping that that's the kind of run we go on, that we just become unstoppable. Sort of like when we were 3-4 with Houston Nutt and we beat Florida and we went on that run and won the last 6 games. We even fell behind to Texas Tech in the bowl game and then blew them out. And so to the point where I think it was 14-0 in a blink, and I looked at my brother and said, "Can we get a refund?" And so, but then it was like 49-20 something. I don't remember what it was, but we wore them out. So I'm hoping that Ole Miss can do something like that and just become a complete juggernaut here for the end of the season and just roll right through everybody. We'll see what happens.
You're saying they need to let the Rebs get hot. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. Don't let the Rebs get hot. That's right.
Yeah, something like that. We're going to come back and take some questions in the comments. We're going to talk about the Arkansas game a little bit. This is the reaction roundtable, talking about the Oklahoma game and looking ahead towards Arkansas as well. So stick around. So Game Time is the place to get your Ole Miss tickets with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from receipts, and the lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying Ole Miss tickets. You know, there's not a bad seat involved in Hemingway Stadium or the Pavilion. But this lets you see exactly what the view would be from that seat before you buy the tickets. It's really cool. They have the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation, and job loss protection. They take the guesswork out of buying Ole Miss tickets with Game Time. And with this being the most anticipated season in Ole Miss history, I might be able to help you out with tickets as well. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account or redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, this is going to be a pretty fun weekend because basically on tomorrow morning's podcast, it's going to be all about how beating Arkansas basically resurrects Ole Miss's season. Everything that was happening beforehand, a win over Arkansas, everything becomes attainable, and that Georgia game becomes the thing that everybody needs to have happen. It's going to be a big moment in basically Ole Miss history, potentially the biggest game in Ole Miss history. And the funny thing is, Josh, looking at the games that happened over the weekend, LSU took their second loss. Alabama has 2 losses. Missouri, basically, they're without a quarterback with 2 losses. Tennessee's going to take another loss or 2. There's a chance that every team at the top of the SEC has 2 losses.
Steven, I was thinking that too. When I pulled up my app and I saw that it was 12-13 in the SEC playing this past weekend with us and Oklahoma, I thought how quickly that can change because one of us is going to win, and there's going to be teams lose. There's teams ahead of us that are playing each other. They're going to lose, and 2-3 weeks down the road, you win, and all of a sudden now you're 4th in the SEC and you're not 12th anymore. So it can change in a hurry, and it's been a wacky SEC already. I mean, Vanderbilt took Texas to the brink, and I so desperately wanted Vandy to win that game.
Oh, yeah, I think everybody did.
Yeah, I mean, I did, and I hated the stat they put up. Vandy 3 straight losses as a ranked team. I mean, come on, y'all.
Oh, Rebel asked the questions, why do we continue to run a small running back up the middle for little or no gain? I understand you have to try, but you must be more creative, getting our smaller backs into space and out on the perimeter. They tried to do that a little bit against Oklahoma. I noticed some variety to the game. The play that I can't stand is the tempo inside zone run that they do, to where one time it was Caden Lee asked to block, one time it was Jordan Watkins, where 170-pound receivers being asked to block an SEC defensive end, and then we're shocked. It's like, oh, we didn't make it. That's so weird. And of course you didn't. Of course you didn't. And I just think maybe it's time for a Rashad Amos. Maybe it's time for a Dominique Thomas, somebody that's a little bit bigger that can provide a little bit something different. I don't know if Logan Diggs is 100% healthy yet. I don't know what's going to happen there. But I do think that Ole Miss needs a little bit of variety in the run game. They do have, 10 days to fix the run game, because against Georgia, you have to have the run game fixed. You absolutely have to have the run game fixed against Georgia. You might even be able to get away with this against Arkansas, but against Georgia, you have to have it fixed. So I'll see how that goes.
Yeah, if we can't run the ball against Georgia, it's going to be a long night like it was. It won't be exactly as bad as it was last year, but it's not going to be a good night if we cannot get the run game going at all.
Brent Wells says, did we have 1 or 2 new defensive commitments today? I saw 2 Sharks from Golding. The Clemson flip I saw, but not anything from the second one. I didn't see one from the Clemson flip. I saw one from the UCF flip, that the defensive end. I saw him. I know about him. I don't know about the second one, but I just might not have been paying attention to what's going on, taking a break in between, like doing my shows and doing this.
So maybe it's a Clemson one and a UCF one.
Yeah, maybe. We'll have to see what's up. William Brunson says more 2012 personnel. The offense was at its best. Listen, I only toot my own horn about every show. That's all I do. I am somebody that loves to brag when he's right. I never admit when I'm wrong, and I am infuriating to people that do not like me. I nailed this Oklahoma game in pregame analysis. I nailed it. Everything about it, the problems, even if Oklahoma was going to make it a game and closer than it should have been, I even explained how that I nailed this game.
So, Steven, I have a question for you. Since I was mad at Ole Miss football and you took the brunt of that, or part of the brunt of that, what was your score prediction for this game?
31-10.
Okay. So on air, we always do the scores. We have like 4 or 5 games we pick. And so I said 27-10.
Ooh.
And so I was pretty close. If we kick the extra point and then hold them to a field goal, and now I had it. So I'm the worst, though. Like, if you were to go back at the history and look through the season, like, I'm the worst of the pickers, but I was the closest on our game this time. So I'm going to take the small victory that I can have. So I'm going to gloat too.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I even explained, like, I did a whole thing about Caden Priestcorn and why I even put like Daquan Wright's yearly statistics on there. It's like he had 5 catches coming in. I did all of that. And I'll put it to you like this. After Ole Miss won the game, because I wouldn't have done this if Ole Miss wouldn't have had that second half, but I was peacocking around something fierce after the ball game.
Yeah, and Daquan was 1 catch away from having an even bigger game, or missed a drop away from having a bigger game. So. Yeah,
and that was a fantastic. 12 personnel. How long have I been calling for 12 personnel? It's been 2 years.
Yeah, forever.
Of me calling for 12 personnel.
And we have it. We did it. It worked. I mean, again, when I looked at the stat line, I was so excited not to see like 13 catches for 190 and then 1 catch for 12, 1 catch for 11, 1 catch for 8, 1 catch for 6, that kind of thing.
I listen, let's say Trey Harris comes back against Arkansas. Let's say he's back in the fall. They do not need to throw out 12 personnel.
No.
They need to keep that option on the table. And then just let the slot receiver, whoever the receiver is du jour, go out to the other side of the field with what's going on. Because that tight end is going to help everything. As you saw in this game, how they could open up and help Dart. And Dart looked like a completely different quarterback at the end of this game because he was able to get into rhythms throwing passes that he was comfortable with.
Yeah, and, I mean, he looked like Dart more like the end of last season.
Yeah, it's amazing what rhythm and confidence will do to somebody.
Yep.
So, Brian Wesley says, I'm having a hard time believing this kind of offense is planned thing considering all the players back. I don't know that it's again, I am not going to poo-poo on the offense against Oklahoma. There's going to be people that want 50 points a game just because they're used to, we talked about that, of people that's just used to the Lane Kiffin experience. That offense was absolutely perfect. That game plan was absolutely perfect for this defense. And as long as Ole Miss doesn't help the other team, Ole Miss is going to beat every single team on their schedule if they play like they did offensively in the second half against Oklahoma.
Well, and Steven, that's one of the things, I mean, on the show, 4 of us picked, and everybody was going, oh, yeah, Ole Miss is going to cover the 20 or whatever. I was like, Oklahoma's defense is too good. That's a good defense. They're not a bad defense. And so that was I didn't think we were going to score over 30 anyway. Mm-hmm. So it was a good defense.
Yeah, that Oklahoma defense is legit. They're really good. And Ole Miss was varied enough to where they made them hurt a little bit. And that was pretty fantastic to see, if we're going to be honest about it. So, Josh, what do you got going on this week, bud?
Man, just kind of getting ready. I got a big trip coming up, man. I'm gonna get to go hunt whitetails in Kansas. Okay. So that's a couple of weeks away, but I'm kind of getting everything together, getting all my stuff packed, getting ready so I don't wait till the last minute. So that's sort of my big thing. Of course, Halloween's this week. It's supposed to rain here on Halloween, so not sure how many kids will come by the house, but I always enjoy sitting out and handing out the candy, when they come by. That's always a fun thing I like to do.
All right, Josh. Thank you very much for stopping by the program. We'll talk to you maybe next week, bud.
All right. Howdy, go Rebs.
Howdy, toddy.